All right. Dice Commando was nice enough to let me roll through a deck tech video. My name is Dean. SwagDean is my TTS handle and team name. And I'm also the head editor of the website gamingwithswag.com, which is a general gaming site primarily aimed at dads or just busy adults. This week, I am highlighting a villain mill and kill deck. And like the Sectum Sempra spell in Harry Potter, this deck is for your enemies and not your friends, as it is not fun to play against. The basic strategy is to handicap your opponent and then beat them into submission. The weaknesses of the deck is that it has relatively low health with 22 and doesn't have a lot of firepower to start. The team is constructed of elite pilot Vader, elite director Krennic, the plot Order 66, and then I have the battlefield Outer Rim Outpost. As you are playing Order 66 and I'm playing some supports, you're not going to claim very often. And with Vader's specials, you often are not going to win the roll-off. So the battlefield is not like a super critical choice. I like it because if my opponent claims and draws a card, I have another thing I can then discard, as Villain Mill hits the hand a little bit better than the deck. But you do have two leaders, so like Salt Flats would also be a decent choice. With this, with the plot, you're able to bring 4 set-aside copies of Execute Order 66, and I just take those 4. I do not have any additional ones in the deck. I find I don't have a hard time drawing them, and a lot of times with Order 66, the threat of playing it is almost as good as actually playing it, even if you don't have it in your hand. To further hamstring my opponent, I play 2 copies of Hampered, which makes it so that they can't resolve more than 1 die at a time, and those dice cannot be modified. So even if they action cheat in, they can't resolve all their dice, and it makes it easier for them to strand those modifiers. I also play a copy of Mind Extraction. Ideally, you're playing this on the player that you're going to kill last, but it also is great against characters with really powerful abilities, like a Palpatine or an Aphra, but you can throw that on them and just turn that off. With the idea of playing Execute Order 66 potentially every round, which will spend the 2 resources you draw, you do need to ramp resources. With this deck, I recommend 2 copies of Merchant Freighter, which does give you a vehicle to pilot with Vader, which turns on the ability to then play Eject, which is amazing. We also have 2 copies of Director, which is really easy to turn on with Krennic, just turning to a single resource side and then rolling it right back in. And we also have Logistics, which is pretty straightforward. We should have a couple red dice with resources on them to use this on. For the dice cards, I have Bardotten Sphere, which you get the dust off, and it's not a commonly used card. But in this deck, it's actually perfect. It's discarding from the hand, but specials allow you to discard from the deck, which is more rare for villain. And if it's an odd number, you get the ping of damage. You can also get a resource on it. It's actually an amazing upgrade. We also play Demon Mastery, which allows you to special chain with Vader, damage, focuses, all things that we could like to use. Mega Blaster Troopers, which is probably the main hammer of the deck. When you can get this out, you can spot leaders no matter who's alive. You always get all of the troopers. And then we have Admiral. Ideally, you'd be resetting Vader, but whoever you get to roll in a second time. And remember, Krennic's ability, it goes off when he activates, so you can do that twice in a round. Admiral's just an amazing play. Our other dice cards, I do recommend Kylo Ren's Starfighter, another not often used card. In this deck, it's a 2-cost. It's another vehicle for Vader to pilot, and it has some base range sides. And then the special, if they're playing against a mono deck, they're going to burn through their hand faster, so the special doesn't wreck them. And I often will roll that in first, make them waste mitigation, it's just the same as the discard, or you can punch them in the face with it. Senate Chamber, giving you focuses, discards, resources, power action, which you can use for mitigation, another amazing card. And then Fickle Mercenaries to get some more damage in there. The 2 Disrupt is also great to resolve, and there's another discard. For mitigation, I recommend free mitigation since we are going to be spending more on the Execute Order 66. We do have access to Forsaken, Sinister Peace, and Doubt. With Order 66 being on the restricted list and the Ganondorf Holocron being commonly accepted, we don't get to play Hidden Motive, but these on top of 66 is pretty impressive. I do have a copy of Snare. Sometimes you'll find that your opponent will try to stall rolling in, try to get you to spend your resources on something else so they don't get 66th, and you can just spend one more resource and block them from coming in at all, which is amazing against big, powerful character as well. You have the card Hatching a Plan. Turn a die to a side showing a discard. It's free, and you can flip right to the 2 discard on either Vader or Krennic. And then you earn command now, which you can use to play a title. We have 4 titles in this deck between Director and Admiral. Some other options you could consider would be Probe and Counterintelligence. I find that I'm actually able to hit the hand pretty hard with Krennic and Vader, and cards like Hatching a Plan, the Bardotan Sphere. I usually find I'm getting there. So these are kind of overkill cards for discarding from the hand, but they're certainly not bad options. Electromagnetic Pulse, another free removal, and the deck is built around removing character dice, so this gives you an option to get some vehicles out. You have 2 leaders, so Near Miss will also be on as long as they're both alive. The best defense, I do find that people tend to go after Krennic first. He has less health. You tend to roll him in first because he's easier to get your discard sides out. So he does seem to be the natural first target, so I stopped playing the best defense in this deck. Separatist Embargo, since you have Red Villain, it is a great way to just take away whatever trick your opponent is going to be trying to pull off or whatever their best card is. So this is not a bad option, especially if you know what you're going to be up against, or if you have a pretty good call in the meta. And then any dice card with Thrawn on it is also a good idea. Both Mastermind and Cultural Records do all the things we want to do. And its focuses, discards from the hand, gives us resources. Dooku's Saber gives us more damage. It's the only melees other than the one on the Neiman Mastery, so you can strand that one, but it has discards, and if you play it on Vader, you do get the ping damage when you play it. And last, you could play Conscript Squad. As you're spotting leaders, it is efficiently going to roll in with them. However, you have no base range sides in the beginning, so this is a card that you really only want to see late and start to marry it with your Kylo Starfighter, your Fickle, or some of your Mega Blasters. All right, so thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that. And as always, go Commando.